highly encourage you to take that class. And just again, thank you for welcoming me here today and having me back. So when I was growing up, one of my favorite TV shows was The Golden Girls. Any Golden Girls fans? My people are here. Okay. And one of the things I loved most about The Golden Girls was anytime Sophia Petrillo went into storytelling mode. She started every story the same way. How did she start it? Picture it, Sicily. That's right. And off she went sharing life lessons filled with old world wisdom, heart, and humor. So in honor of Sophia, picture it. Rome, October 17th, 2024, at about 6 a.m., before the sunrise, before the crowds, my husband Roger, our son Andrew, the fabulous group of friends we were traveling with, and myself arrived at the Vatican for what would be an over-the-top VIP experience. Now, we were escorted in by our guides, and we met up with a gentleman known as the Key Master. That is his real title. And he's responsible for unlocking all the doors throughout the Vatican museums every day. And on this unforgettable Thursday, we would be joining him. Now, you should have seen us. We were like kids on Christmas morning. We had the entire Vatican museums to ourselves. And so one by one, we each got to take a key and unlock a door. And then we reached the most special door of all. And because the trip was partly to celebrate my 50th birthday, yes, I'm over 50, I was handed the key to unlock the door to the Sistine Chapel. This was the key. One of the most sacred, breathtaking, unbelievable spaces on the planet. I mean, we're talking Michelangelo's ceiling, the Last Judgment, the creation of Adam. I mean, hundreds of people were expected to come through the doors that day, and I got to open it for them. The magic of that moment was not lost on me. I mean, I was just overcome with emotion. And then for weeks after that trip, I kept reflecting back to that moment, standing there at the door to the Sistine Chapel thinking, how did I get here? Show of hands if you've ever had a how did I get here moment. Yeah, a lot of us have. And here's what I finally realized about that morning in Rome. You see, I thought the door was the miracle. It wasn't. The miracle is becoming the kind of person who is ready to unlock it. Because the most important doors in our lives are rarely the external doors, right? The relationship, the platform, the opportunity. I mean, those doors are great. Those doors matter. But every external door is preceded by an internal door, a door of courage, a door of confidence, of self-awareness, a door of learning how to manage yourself when life, work, and people do not go as expected. And nobody taught us how to unlock those doors. Nobody taught us how to manage disappointment, right? Nobody taught us really how to stay steady under pressure. Nobody taught us how to navigate a difficult conversation without losing ourselves. Nobody taught us how to build trust. Nobody taught us how to repair tension, regulate emotion, and yet those are the skills. If you think about it, those are the skills that determine the quality of our lives. And those skills have a name: emotional intelligence. Everybody's heard of it. Almost nobody's been taught it. So if you're taking notes, let me give you the definition of emotional intelligence that I use. Emotional intelligence is the practice. I call it a practice because we get lots of opportunities to practice every day. It is the practice of recognizing and understanding your emotions, the emotions of others, and then using that awareness to effectively manage your behavior and your relationships. It's a practice. It's a practice. And usually when people talk about emotional intelligence, they talk about it as a soft skill. Now, I'm asking you not to hear it as a soft skill today because there's absolutely nothing soft about it, especially in today's world. Technology is accelerating. Attention is fractured. Pressure's high, isn't it? And AI is really changing the way that we work. In today's world, your greatest competitive advantage is you. How do you like that? Your awareness, your emotional mastery, who you are. That's what will set you apart. I truly believe that's what will set you apart. And here's what I know. The biggest doors in your life that you come in front of, they won't open simply because you become more technically skilled. Those doors will open because you become more emotionally capable. And that's what I want us to talk about today. Think about the biggest moments in your own life. Think about those big moments. Getting married, having children, growing a business. I know in this room, you all have probably overcome lots of challenges, right? None of those moments asked, how technically skilled are you? You know what those moments asked? Can you manage your emotions when you're afraid? Can you stay calm when everything around you isn't? Can you navigate a hard conversation without losing yourself? And those are completely different questions. And isn't it interesting that the moments that have shaped us the most are the ones nobody prepared us for? Let me ask you, did anyone prepare you for a friend letting you down? Did anyone prepare you for a boss giving you some tough feedback? Or when a spouse says we need to talk? Nobody prepared us for those moments. I've spent probably more than a decade now, maybe closer to 15 years studying these skills and having the privilege of working with leaders and teams and organizations. And I've discovered something fascinating. The people who consistently create extraordinary results, they are rarely the smartest people in the room. They are rarely the most talented or technically gifted. What I've discovered are the people who create extraordinary results are the ones who've mastered their human edge, the human side of success. And I was very fortunate to develop mine very early in life. As a matter of fact, one of my greatest teachers never even knew she was teaching me. Her name was Linda. I don't know if many of you in this room have heard my Linda story. So when I was in my mid-20s, I worked at the Mental Health Resource Center in Jacksonville, Florida. Now you all probably know that book, Everything I Needed to Learn, I Learned in Kindergarten. Well, my book would be called Everything I Needed to Learn, I Learned at Mental Health. It was a really great job. And I enjoyed the patients, I enjoyed the doctors and my coworkers. I worked very closely with all of our psychiatrists and therapists. And the head of the inpatient unit, a nurse named Linda, as we say in the South, bless her heart. You know, how can I say this kindly? Linda, she was one of these glass half empty kind of people. You know who I'm talking about, right? Everything's a problem. And she didn't mind telling you. So most Monday mornings, before I could even put my purse down, Linda was at my desk. And her opening line was always the same. Regina, we have a problem. Whew. Have you had these people that just suck and drain the life right out of you? Yeah, that was Linda. Linda, she had her hand on her hip and she let out a sigh, and it was a whole production. And Linda was a little bit older than my mom and dad. And so I was desperate to treat this woman with respect. And by the way, this wasn't just reserved for Mondays. Oh, no, 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 no. At least 2 or 3 times a week, there would come Linda at my desk presenting one of her problems. This went on for weeks and months. And you know, after a year of nearly working together closely with Linda, our interactions were impacting me. I was anxious. I dreaded going to work. Our interactions, it was impacting my interactions with other people. And so I knew that something had to change. So one Monday I decided I'm gonna get to Linda before she could get to me. And so I went down to her office on the inpatient unit. She was with a patient. So I waited in her office. And while I was waiting, I noticed the books she was reading and I saw pictures of her family. And I thought, wow, I'm getting a glimpse of Linda, the person. So when she came in, I was ready for her. In my most cheerful voice, I said, hey, Linda, how was your weekend? She grumbled, fine. Well, was a start. And then I pointed at one of the photos and I said, "Are these your grandkids?" And she smiled. And believe it or not, that's how it happened. Slowly, and I do mean slowly, Linda and I started developing another kind of relationship. And after many more years of working together, we had an entirely different relationship than when we started. So let me ask you, who's had a Linda experience before? Yes, right? We all have had a Linda in our life. And you know, little in our lives prepare us for the Lindas we encounter. I mean, just think about it. When you and I start school, we learn how to read and write and how to add and subtract. That's exactly what we should learn. Then we learn things like astronomy, trigonometry, European history. And it's a good thing that we do, right? The world needs teachers and doctors and pilots and accountants. We need those trades. We were also told that getting good grades, going to a good college, and getting married and a great job after college, we were taught that those were the keys to success and happiness. And that isn't always the case, is it? And listen, I loved going to school. I loved it. But unless I'm watching Jeopardy, I don't think anybody has ever asked me about the Treaty of Versailles or the Russian Revolution. Nobody's ever asked me those questions. But what I'd learned from my relationship with Linda is how we handle ourselves and other people may be the most important things we will ever learn. And the irony is, nobody really taught us about them. And they matter. They matter because anytime you and I come together, oh, I love this. Make sure I get this right. Anytime you and I come together, voice to voice, one-on-one, or in a group like this, we enter what's called the emotional economy. So just think about it. We're all in the emotional economy together right now. And for better or worse, every interaction impacts us. Every single one. You have the ability, this just gives me goosebumps every time I say it. You have the ability to influence my moods, feelings, and emotions, and I have the ability to influence yours. I mean, just take that in for a second. That speaks to the very highly contagious nature of emotions. The emotional exchanges we have, and we have a lot of them every day, whether they are uplifting or draining, they leave an impact. And that impact may be our most valuable asset. I think that's our competitive advantage, to be honest. And Jim Carrey, of all people, actor and comedian Jim Carrey, he nailed this, you guys. In his 2016 commencement address, he said, "The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is." Whew, that is just so good. The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. And when you and I recognize, when we really embrace that the effect we have on other people is our true currency, something shifts. And we become more intentional as to how we navigate our interactions and spend this currency. Because in the emotional economy, I promise you this, your presence always makes an impact. Your tone sets the emotional temperature, and your words carry weight. And if you and I can learn the skills that nobody taught us, we can maximize our effectiveness, our influence, and our impact. That takes me back to that door, that morning there in Rome at the door to the Sistine Chapel. And I thought the door was the most important thing. And it was really what that moment and being at that door was teaching me about. Every meaningful door in our lives, and make no mistake about it, whatever you're working on or towards, all the meaningful external doors in our lives, they are unlocked from the inside first. And over the years, I've come to believe that there are three internal doors that you and I must unlock that will allow us to develop our human edge, activate that you factor, and unleash our competitive advantage. Now I'm going to share those 3 doors with you, but first I have a little video. It's only almost 2 minutes long that I want to share with you guys. How do I get the video?
Let's find out.
Okay.
This one?
Yes, please.
Envelope. Really great. Happy birthday, Regina.
Y'all can't take me anywhere. I was like, open it. Go.
Happy birthday. Oh, I can smell it. We're gonna do it again.
Okay, he had to stop. I was like, I give you the Sistine Chapel, but he had to stop recording because they don't allow you to record inside. Thank you for allowing me to share that video. That was one of the most powerful moments of my life. And I'm privileged to have had that moment and to come back and get to share some of the things about that. So let's talk about these 3 internal doors that I truly believe that we all have to unlock from the inside. And that first door is the door of self-awareness. Now, this is one of those skills, again, that nobody taught us, how to see ourselves clearly. And this one really matters. If we think about it, we had a class for everything, didn't we? But did anybody ever hand you a syllabus on you? Did anybody ever sit you down and say, here's how you're wired, here's what happens when you're under stress, or here's how you make people feel when you walk into a room? Nope. Now for me, I think one of the greatest tools for self-awareness is DISC. I absolutely love using DISC. And if you're unfamiliar with it, here's all you need to know. DISC is a model of human behavior. It's a way for us to explain and understand some of our natural personality and communication tendencies. It gives us a language for why people do what they do, why some people are fast-paced, others move slower, why some people lead with task and others with relationship. It doesn't put you in a box. I think that's a lot of people's fear about learning DISC and using it. It hands you a mirror. It allows you to look clearly at yourself. And I first encountered DISC actually when I was first enrolled as a KW agent and we had to take a DISC assessment. And I was fascinated by it then. And then in 2015, when I took the 2-day certification, it changed everything. It became the biggest part of my business and such a huge impact on my personal life. Now, during that 2-day certification, we took the assessment several times. And every single time, I was an I. And let me tell you, I did not want to be an I. So on the break, I marched right up to our instructor and I showed him my assessment and I said, we've got to fix this. I don't want to be an I. Spoken kind of like an I. And he laughed and said, why not? I said, well, I's are talkative, they're attention seeking, and if I can be honest, they're a little obnoxious. And that just doesn't sound like me at all. And he leaned down, looked me in my eyes, and asked me a question. He said, "Why do you want to be a coach and a speaker?" I said, "Well, I want to encourage people. I want people to know that it's possible that they can live their very best lives, and I think I can do that using my voice." He said, "Exactly. Those are the natural strengths of the I personality. And the good news is, you don't have to be obnoxious unless you want to." He said, "Lean into your strengths with grace and humility, and you'll have no trouble bringing out your best." I can tell you for sure that that was one of those moments that was a turning point in my life. Because his words, he wasn't trying to fix me. His words, they freed me. I mean, they freed me. When we understand who we are and really take on self-awareness, sorry, I'm probably doing that, we can live with honesty and lead with authenticity. You know, I fell in love with DISC over that 2-day training because it unlocked a door for me. It helped me understand my natural strengths, my personality tendencies, my communication style, even my blind spots. Now, DISC really showed me those patterns. But managing ourselves in the moment, under pressure, when it counts, that's a whole different thing. And that's when I brought emotional intelligence into the picture. And those two pieces, DISC and emotional intelligence, for me, they became the mirror, the map, the key, that they unlocked it all. Now, this first door, this door of self-awareness, I'm not going to pretend that it's an easy one to open. It's heavy. Because when you really start learning about yourself, when you take on this self-awareness, you've got to confront some uncomfortable truths. We have to look at our flaws, our fears, our insecurities. And our ego is built to protect us from those things. Our egos, they will lie, deny, and rationalize to keep us sometimes from seeing the real truth about ourselves. But if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and walk through this door, what's waiting for you is confidence, awareness, and courage, influence. And I think that's where your human edge is built. So let me ask you this. In the next 30, 60, 90 days, maybe even from now through the end of the year, what's one thing you can do that will raise your own personal self-awareness? Just think about that. What's something you can do to learn about yourself at a higher level? Because when we start to see ourselves clearly, this is kind of the real magic of this one. When you start to see yourself clearly, it helps you see other people clearly. And that brings us to the second door. I call this door the door of relational awareness. The first door grows us. This door of relational awareness, it grows the thing between you and I. It grows that information. And this again, tell me if I'm wrong, no one really taught us about this either, did they? No one set us down and explained that the loudest person in the room is often the most insecure. That the quiet person, they're not disengaged. They're just processing. That an angry customer or client, usually a frightened one. That the difficult employee is often overwhelmed. And that person that's almost impossible to deal with, yeah, those are the people carrying something that almost none of us know about. And I don't remember anybody ever teaching me that. And I kind of learned this one the hard way in Linda's office that day, as I was getting a glimpse of Linda the person. That was one of the first times I stopped looking at Linda the problem. Anytime that we're in a room like this or with other people, we have a presence, right? We use words. And sometimes we think they don't make an impact. But those words, our present, our energy, they don't just stick with us. They ripple out. And they affect every single person around us. This happens both personally and professionally. And you know, one of the greatest business examples of this is with Steve Wynn, the iconic developer of some of the greatest hotels and casinos around the world. A few years ago, I ran across a video of Steve Wynn speaking at a business mastery event. And he said something so simple that it almost slips right past you. He said, if you can make people feel good about themselves, they will love you for it. Isn't that the truth? I mean, that's the real simple truth. If you can make people feel good about themselves, they will love you for it. I love that. We all know that's true. And Wynn didn't just know that was true, he built an entire empire around that. He understood something that most leaders miss. See, most leaders think their business is about the business. Steve Wynn didn't think his business was hotels, casinos, and entertainment. He knew his business with people. And so he started training his staff not just to perform tasks, but to connect. Not blackjack dealer to player, not housekeeper to guest, person to person. And this is where it gets really interesting. He took about 900 supervisors out at the Wynn Las Vegas hotel. And in addition to their regular responsibilities, he asked these supervisors during their pre-shift meetings to ask for stories. Stories from the day before where a team member made a special interaction with a guest. And they begin to collect these stories, tell these stories, celebrate these stories. And soon the employees, they found themselves to be the heroes of the guest interaction. I mean, Steve Wynn was actually showing adults inside of a casino ecosystem. He was teaching them the skills nobody really taught them. And his people, they didn't just find this personally gratifying. They realized that their roles weren't transactional with guests. Their roles were meaningful. Steve Wynn understood this at such a high level, this emotional economy that you and I are in right now, and he translated that into the experience economy, a multi-billion-dollar one, by being both strategic and genuine. So let me ask you this. The people that you interact with every day, think about clients, customers, colleagues, family members, children, everybody. Think about everybody that you're going to impact and interact with later today. How do they feel? How do they feel after spending time with you? Do they feel more seen, more heard, more valued? You know, one of my favorite books is Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. And I often think about Principle 6. Take responsibility for your emotional wake. W-A-K-E. Your wake is what you leave behind. I mean, think about a boat wake and what's left after the boat goes. That's your emotional wake. So when the meeting is over or the call ends, you jump off of Zoom or you leave here today, what's the story that people are telling about you and their interaction with you? What do you want that story to be? And I can promise you that's another skill nobody ever taught us. They taught us just to prepare for the meeting, right? No one taught us how to engage with people at the meeting. Different skill set. And again, I can't say this enough. Just understand that when you come in front of other people, they're feeling something. There will be a story, even if it's just in their head for a moment or two. There will be a story that they talk about with another person or again, just with themselves about their time with you. So we got to walk through this door with intention because we always are leaving an impact. And if you can walk through this door and really think and understand about your interactions with others, this door really unlocks one of the greatest multipliers of influence. That ability that we each have to make other people feel seen, heard, and valued. This is how you shape culture, you build trust, and turn just these ordinary moments that you and I have in passing all the time. We can take those ordinary moments and turn them into something really extraordinary, just like the folks do out at the Wynn. It's one of my favorite places to stay in Vegas. So now it's my turn to ask you, what will you do? What will you do, knowing that you've got this power to influence others? What will you do today, tomorrow, this week, to really sharpen how you connect with others. What does that look like for you? Because when you're intentional about this piece, you're sharpening and developing your human edge. So let's talk about that third and final door. This door is the door of impact and influence. This is the door that while the first one kind of changes and grows you, and the second one grows and changes your relationship with others, this third door, what's so great about this third door is it has the power to change lives that aren't even yours. And I promise you, this is probably a skill nobody taught you, because you and I weren't taught to open the door for other people, so to speak. I think we've come to that realization, but nobody really sat us down and taught us. We were taught to compete. We were taught to get the grade and get the job. But nobody taught us how to look back and look at the others coming up behind us. One of my favorite stories about the impact that one life can have on another came from an extraordinary conversation I had with a wonderful lady, Paralympic medalist Bonnie St. John. Bonnie was the first African American to win gold in Winter Paralympic Games. Not gold. She actually won a silver and 2 bronze medals in the 1984 Winter Paralympic Games in Innsbruck, Austria, as a skier on one leg. See, when Bonnie was 5 years old, her right leg was amputated just below the knee. And I had the pleasure of interviewing Bonnie for my 2020 Facebook show I did called The Women of Empowered Living. And before Bonnie and I jumped on Zoom, her team arranged for us to have a pre-call together. I thought that was so cool. I'm on the phone with a Paralympic medalist. And after just a few minutes, she and I were talking like old friends. So I had the courage to ask her my most pressing question. I dug deep for this question. I said, Bonnie, how does a black girl with one leg end up as a competitive skier? How does this happen? I went skiing once, y'all. I never needed to go again. This woman had one leg. I had to know how this happened. And she told me the most incredible story. When Bonnie was in high school, her friend Barbara invited her on a family ski trip. Now, stop right there for a second. Let's all go back to high school for just a second. Are you taking your friend with one leg on a family ski trip? I'm not. I'm not, to protect her. I don't want her to get hurt. No, I would have never asked my friend with one leg to go ski. Barbara did. Barbara did. She did something that's not often easy to do. She didn't say no for Bonnie. You and I very often, I know speaking for myself, I've said no for other people. No, they won't want to use me in my services. No, people don't want to hear what I have to say. I've said no for them. How wonderful. Barbara never said no for Bonnie. It's that instinct to protect people sometimes, and to protect ourselves. Barbara opened this door for Bonnie, and it changed her life. And as you can imagine, on that ski trip, Bonnie fell a lot. She was bloodied and bruised. Barbara's mom wondered if they did the right thing by even bringing her. But Bonnie fell in love with skiing. She had a need for speed, and skiing allowed her to go fast. She fell in love that day. She walked through that door with courage, all the way to the Paralympic podium. I talk about how, gosh, if I were Barbara, I never would have invited my friend with one leg skiing. If I'm Bonnie with one leg, I probably would have never accepted the invitation. But she did. And Bonnie said, that invitation changed my life. I would say so. I would say so. Now, here's what I want you to catch. See, Barbara, who invited her, Barbara wasn't trying to build some Olympic athlete. She had no idea. She was a high school girl inviting her friend on a ski trip. She had no idea what she was setting into motion. Just a teenager inviting a friend on a trip. That is the power of impact. That is the power that you and I have to change another life. That's just so cool. Because we think about the world at large and we think, well, I can't change the world. We can change somebody's world, right? Just by encouraging and inviting. We can change somebody's world just by believing in them before they believe in themselves. It's so cool. So let me ask you another question, and this one you're going to probably have to sit with. Who in your life do you need to open a door for? Is there someone professionally, personally, somewhere in your life, someone you know that might benefit from you opening a door for them? Because you and I have no idea what might happen when we open a door and let somebody in. Now, if you walk through this final door, this door of impact and influence, it just doesn't change your story, right? We are talking about changing the lives and stories of other people, rewriting history. And this is where impact and influence becomes our legacy. I don't know about you guys. I want to live forever, but I probably won't. So wouldn't it be amazing, the legacy, the lives change that we can leave behind? So we've walked through these three doors. Let me wrap this up. We walked through these three doors. This first door, how we see ourselves. The second door, that relational awareness. And this third door, opening a door for others. Here's the truth. When you and I were growing up, when you went to college or trade school or just started a family, nobody sat us down and taught us these skills. Some of these skills we picked up along the way. Some of these we didn't. But I want you to leave here today knowing that at any moment, you can decide to learn these skills at a higher level. Because they're skills. They can be learned, they can be practiced, they can be up-leveled, which means you can start building them today. I didn't get here and I didn't get to that moment at the door to the Sistine Chapel simply because somebody handed me a physical key. These big moments in our lives, this moment I'm standing here today, ordinary moments that we take for granted, we can turn them into something else when we really sharpen our focus on our self-awareness, our relational awareness, and our influence. And I hope after today that you look at these a little differently. Thank you. Let me say this real quick. This QR code, I hope it's working. If it's not, it's just to my website. And if you know my name, you know my website, reginabryan.com. I've got a lunch and learn series. I've got 2 free lunch and learns in September on Zoom and 2 in October. And they're called The Skills Nobody Taught Us, because nobody did teach us a lot of this. So if you want to join me or follow me on social media, just hop on over to my website. It's easy to use. And if I can answer any questions for you, I'll stick around for a few. Thanks.
Thank you.